Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. Glad to have you with me. We're going to be doing our Texas versus Iowa State prep. Very, very important game within the Big 12. Trying to get to where we want to go. We're on our redemption tour, trying to get back to Arlington, potentially play, whether it's Oklahoma, Baylor, what have you. Trying to get back to that Big 12 title game. So it starts in Ames, Iowa State this Saturday. We're going to dive into all the prep. Been watching a lot of film and dive into some things with you guys and talk some ball. Before we get there, those of you who are wondering, hey, where's Tran? He had an unfortunate situation with his son. Nothing too dire, but had to, allergic reaction, kid thing. So he's taking care of that tonight. We will be back with Tran probably this Friday night for a live chat. So everybody that wants to get Tran's thoughts, we had some great prep talk before we were going to film this video, and he has some really hot takes and strong opinions that me and him, or him and I were going back and forth with. So want to get his opinions in front of you guys and have that dialogue with him about the game. Just doesn't feel the same without him next to me. But the show must go on. And I also want to give a couple thank yous. Thank yous to our sponsors, Boss's Ranch. Guys, this Red River Ranch flavor, I keep telling y'all every single week. And shout out to everybody that keeps chiming in. Those of you guys who are chiming in on Twitter, social media, tagging the Boss's Ranch account, checking out some of their videos. Links are going to be below. You can find them at your local HEB and the cold produce section. Couldn't be prouder to partner up with these guys. Guys, they are Longhorn fans, diehard fans, and they watch every single video. It is a family-run business. Wonderful, wonderful people, and couldn't be happier to work with them. Boss's Ranch, HEB, cold produce. Check them out. Also want to give another shout out to Horns Illustrated. Guys, Christmas is coming up, and for those of you who know other diehard fans that like collector's items, get their 25th anniversary edition. Also great feedback about it. For those of you who are into other Longhorn sports and they cover all athletics, we also have available membership to their website below as they're growing their web presence. Guys, check out Horns Illustrated and support them as well. You can get them, you can order it online or get them at the airport and other shops, HEB as well. So really, really excited to be partnering up with these guys, and let's get into our prep. This before I get into the tail of the tape of Iowa State, looking at them, and we when we were doing our live chat with Tran on Saturday after our game, we kind of were watching that Iowa State Oklahoma game live, right? And it was fun to kind of go back and forth with y'all and things we were noticing, and watching Brock Purdy lead his team back, watching some of the decisions that Matt Campbell decided to make to try to go for that football game when they were playing in Norman. So overall, I've heard a lot of things about, hey, this is a great time to play Iowa State because Oklahoma being such an emotional game may have taken a lot out of them. What's the toll going to be having to play Oklahoma, Texas back to back? That's also a question that Baylor will have to answer as they play Oklahoma this week, and we also have to kind of watch that game. But in terms of this Texas football game and our matchup this week against Iowa State, I have nothing but respect for this opponent. Guys, yes, they are 5-4, but do not be fooled by their record. Of those 4 losses, I believe it's by a combined, I want to say 11 points. Matthew says we're thumbs up on the 11 points. So 11 points, right? They lost to Iowa by 1. Last week they lost by 1 to Oklahoma. They lost by a touchdown to Oklahoma State. When in the Oklahoma State game, it's 6 minutes left in the game. They have the ball going to tie before the pick 6. So overall, they have every Iowa State fans, please chime in. You guys have watched your football team and followed this team the whole year. There's a legit argument they could be 9-0. That's the type of team we're going up against this week. So the good thing is we're coming off some positive momentum. We've kind of hopefully found ourselves not just as a football team, but as a culture in the second half of that Kansas State game. Great having some of our guys back. And hopefully we can, we're also going to be getting Chris Brown back. I think he's going to be wearing a club or something for that broken forearm. But overall, great to have him back in the fold as we face a very, very stiff opponent here. Straight up, many of you guys told me before the season when we were going through our season prep, hey, this is a trap. This is the trap game that nobody's talking about. But this is not a trap. I respect the hell out of Iowa State. Many people talk about Matt Campbell potentially being the best coach in the Big 12, and that includes a conference of Gary Patterson, Lincoln Riley, Matt Rule. You know, everywhere you look at, there's fantastic coaches in this conference, which is why we are so hard on Tom Herman and this staff, because those of us who are educated football fans know the coaches we have to go up against every single week. There's no layups from a coaching matchup perspective in this conference, if that makes sense. So let's dive into it. When I go look at the tail of the tape, I'm looking at Brock Purdy versus Sam Ehlinger. And we're going to get into a bunch of matchups, but this is the one that kind of stuck out to me because Todd Orlando actually referenced this today in his press conference about the similarities he sees with Brock Purdy, not just his competitiveness, but the leap he's made from his freshman year to his sophomore year. Guys, I went to that Iowa State game last year, and Brock Purdy, we overwhelmed him. Todd Orlando, he had no idea what Todd Orlando was throwing at him. We always talk about the blitzes, whatever. That really got to him to the point where he was actually pulled from that game. This is a completely different quarterback that we're going to be matched up against. And those of you who watched that Oklahoma game, because I'll get to the Oklahoma State game, but those of you who watched the Oklahoma game, what you'll notice on, just going back and look at that tape is his ability to be a playmaker, and he's elevating guys around him. And that's something that Tran will actually touch on more in the live chat because he's a big Brock Purdy fan. But what's impressed me with him, his toughness, if you look at it, even statistically, he's right there with Sam Ehlinger. I think at this point, Jalen Hurts is probably going to be first team all Big 12 at quarterback. And then right now, it's for that second team spot, it's probably between Sam Ehlinger and Brock Purdy. And in a lot of categories, Brock Purdy is actually ahead of Sam. He's actually has less interceptions, more rushing touchdowns. Sam has more passing touchdowns, and Brock actually has more passing yardage. So it's very impressive sophomore campaign for Brock Purdy, and his overall poise, his leadership, his competitiveness. And I also just like how the way he throws his football and how in sync he is with his receivers. Last year it was the Hakeem Butler and David Montgomery show. Now it's a whole cast of guys, right? You got Milton, you got Deshaunte Jones, you have LaMichael Petway, you have Charlie Kohler, who scares the living heck out of me at tight end. They got another tight end, Chase Allen, who started to come on last week in the Oklahoma game. So he's now at the point where he's spreading the football around to a bunch of different guys. I believe they have 3 receivers over 500 yards on the season. And that's not even to mention the run game stuff and the emergence of Breece Hall. So when you're looking at all these guys that Brock Purdy has started to kind of come on and utilize and develop a relationship with, it's very impressive to watch. And then on top of that, what's been my biggest point of contention with the Texas defense all year? Their ability to stop mobile quarterbacks. We did a very good job last week with Skylar Thompson. I'm worried about Brock Purdy because he's a different type of mobile. Still, he's more of a guy that's going to run around, look to pass, and extend plays and try to, get that broken play and that big play downfield. But one of the other things that concerns me is he will put it down, he will lower that shoulder, he will try to run. And if we have problems with Carter Stanley, granted, different personnel there, I get it for our defense, but these are things we need to be aware of. And that's another thing. We look at the comparison between him and Sam Ehlinger, you will see the same type of decision making, right? And when I compare these guys, I mentioned a lot of strengths. There's also area opportunities of weakness. Brock's competitiveness can get in the way where he tries to do too much, just like we've seen recently with Sam Ehlinger. We got on Sam about the TCU game, the 4 interceptions. Brock Purdy, Oklahoma State game, made some very, very poor decisions at the end of that game that forced his team to lose a very close football game. The pick 6 and the pick after to seal the game. Fourth quarter interceptions, fourth quarter turnovers, trying to do too much. Are those going to be opportunities that Todd Orlando and this defense, guys like Brandon Jones, guys like Caden Stearns, guys like a Joseph Osai, who had a breakout game last year against Iowa State, are those going to be some opportunities that they can capitalize on with a Brock Purdy who will look to extend plays? He won't. Sometimes he'll disregard that check down like we've seen Sam Ehlinger do to try to make more money downfield, which can be a good thing and also a bad thing. So those are some things I'm personally looking at to where we can take advantage, right? And the similarities between these teams, you look at their defensive schemes are very, very similar. We both deploy a three-man front. We talk about all the time about the three-man front at Texas. Iowa State does very, very similar defense. Now, they'll also roll out a lot of dime, which was very similar to our lightning package that we had before. And they were actually the ones that came up with that cloud where it was like kind of like a three safety look that kind of messed us up a little bit when Shane Buechele was our starting quarterback back in 2017. Now, with all that being said, we talk a lot about Matt Campbell, and we give Tom Herman a lot of heat. Same thing I said last week about this staff coming into the Kansas State game being 2-0 as a staff against that opponent, now 3-0. They are 2-0 against Iowa State since they've been here. They handled their business in 2017 before they made their run, and then last year when they came to Austin, we really kind of put it on them a little bit. So now, a lot of people would, I think most people would say, I think Matt Campbell's a better football coach, but we've had success against him. So is this something that we can repeat for a third consecutive victory for this staff over Matt Campbell and his team? I would be lying if I wouldn't say that I'm not concerned about the coaching matchup and some of the in-game decisions and getting emotional and how game flow may play out here. But there's areas of concern, there's areas of opportunity in every game. So I'm going to try to get into some of this here. The emergence of Breece Hall. And he's been one of the bright spots in the Big 12. He's been on a tear these last, I'd probably say 4 or 5 football games. Almost over 600 yards rushing at this point, 7 TDs on the ground. Looked very explosive against Oklahoma, was very explosive against Texas Tech, and broke off some really, really nice runs. And so every week he's added that productivity that they missed from a David Montgomery, and he's got a lot. He's explosive. He's an explosive runner. If we don't, have our run fits together, he will expose us. So I'm looking at guys. That's why I'm happy to have a Chris Brown back in the lineup. He's been one of our better guys around the line of scrimmage and with those outside zone type of run fits that PJ Locke was really good at. So having him back there. Caden Stearns has also improved there significantly from his freshman to sophomore year with some of those outside zone fits as well. So those are some positives there, but they're very balanced. That's another thing that's, we all you brothers that were out here talking about Keontae Ingram and the struggles, he's really salvaged his season and really picked it up over the last few weeks. So the only thing that's really held Keontae Ingram back is the lack of carries and touches by the coaching staff. So when you look at the balance we have with Keontae Ingram, Sam Ehlinger, and his weapons, it's very similar to what Iowa State is doing and how they want to have balance. Key for us is we got to take away that balance, just like I'm sure is a key for them, right? And forcing them to be one-dimensional and forcing Brock Purdy to have those thoughts where he needs to try to win the game himself. I think that's where we'll be able to be in a position to take advantage, just like Oklahoma State was in their game. Now, ball distribution for us is a little bit different because, right now we've been working to Devin Duvernay. I think he's like 78 catches, 910 yards. He's had a remarkable season, right? And then from there, the drop is like 78 to like 35. Whereas the ball distribution on Iowa State, as I mentioned before, 3 different guys over 500 yards, starting to even work in more guys. Breece Hall being a part of the passing game a little bit. So the ball distribution is a little bit different, but overall, we've got to continue to work the ball to our playmakers. One of the weaknesses that I see that jumps off the tape for me against Iowa State is the tackling. They've had some horrendous tackling in some of these games. The Tech game, and these are some of these games they won, but even looking at last week, CeeDee Lamb, one of the highlight reel touchdowns you'll see in Big 12 play, almost off of a screen pass. The screen pass to Tylan Wallace to start the Oklahoma State game was arguably one of the best plays in the Big 12 all year that you've seen from a run after catch perspective. So those are plays that they consistently give up. Even stuff around the goal line with Jalen Hurts, they were missing tackles. So when I look at Our physicality, Keontae Ingram starting to break tackles more, how hard Roschon Johnson when he runs when he gets in there. And if weather's a concern in terms of the cold and the wind and all that, I'm okay. I feel comfortable relying on our run game as long as the coaches aren't being stubborn and leaning on our offensive line, where I do feel like we have an advantage up front against their defensive front. They have a light box at times with their 3-3-5, so you'll kind of see the similarities. That's going to be the recurring theme here. But our run game, if we can dominate that, dominate time possession, very similar to what we've done the last couple years against these guys. We've held on to the football. Maybe not put up the most points, but we've held on to the football. Don't beat ourselves. Eliminate a lot of those pre-snap penalties. You got to be clean against these guys, is what I've noticed. One of the things that hurt Oklahoma last week, and you'll hear Oklahoma fan complain about this, and the only people that love this channel and Texas content as much as we do are Sooners fans, believe it or not. And they'll tell you, trust me, they will jump in the comments and tell you, where was Kennedy Brooks? Why didn't we get him the rock? And I know Trey Sermon got hurt last week, and God bless him. I hope he can get well soon. That was a horrendous injury he suffered. But when they veered away from the run game and then trying to throw against that shell that Matt Campbell and them throw out there, that's when you get yourself into trouble, period. One of the throws that Jalen Hurts completed to CeeDee Lamb for the early touchdown, where he caught that deep ball, there's 3 people back there. It was a very, very poor throw and a bad read. Great player made a great play. That was what happened there. But that should have been a pick, right? So, but you also see a weakness on Iowa State's side, the lack of physical talent on that defense. I don't even see a guy like a Joel Lanning there, like they had the last couple of years. That was the converted quarterback that turned into this tackling machine. You know, what's the brother? Spears Jr. is a good player, and they have some other guys like a Lawrence White who are good tacklers and good sound football players. But I don't see any reason why Devin Duvernay can't break a couple tackles and step off like he did against LSU. I don't see any reason why Colin Johnson can't work back shoulder with Sam Ehlinger on certain opportunities. Now, I would like to see this. A little bit more diversity with our wide receivers and how they're utilized. I liked in the Kansas game when we were using Brennan Eagles of lining him up inside as a bigger body and running some slants and some more physical routes just to loosen things up and give a different look. I want to see us go back to some of those looks. A little bit more defined for Sam, and not just for Sam, but also for the sake of the offensive line. They have been struggling in pass protection, and that leads me to my next point. Matt Campbell and their coaching staff they will zone blitz. They will blitz from different angles. It's not as crazy as what Todd Orlando does, but they will send heat from different angles. How do we communicate? How do we pick that up? This will be the second game of Reese Laytow in at tight end. I think we're starting to see a little bit of a drop off there from a blocking perspective that we lost from a Cade Brewer. Those are some areas that Iowa State will look to target when they're sending their pressures, right? So I want to see some of our bigger body guys run hot, because at this point, guys, suspect number one that everybody's trying to shut down is Devin Duvernay at this point. I mean, why not with the level of production he's put up? But that was also the case with Little Jordan Humphrey last season. The difference was Colin Johnson was eating on the outside as well. So we got to get everything working. And then that's just on obvious passing downs. But I'm living off my run game in Ames. If that travels, I don't care what the weather is. Keontae Ingram, the way he's been running the last couple weeks. And the thing is, you now have ammunition in the running back room. So he's going to get a kick in the ass if he doesn't run like he has been running. Jordan Whittington is available. Roschon Johnson's available. So there's no excuse. And honestly, this needs to be a game where you do utilize multiple backs. A lot of people said, hey, Jordan Whittington didn't really play last week. Steve, maybe they're not looking for a red shirt, but Keontae's rolling. And there just wasn't that opportunity with Roschon also getting his touches. I get that. But this is a game where it's going to be, I feel like we go in more of a ground and pound. Maybe we throw a little bit early to try to get ahead, get a lead. Again, force Brock Purdy to try to do too much, where Todd Orlando can get more creative with his stuff. They made the adjustment at halftime against Kansas State last week of more of a press man look. One of the things I'm concerned about is Charlie Cole, the tight end. He's probably the best tight end we'll see all year. Very, very physical. A guy who's one of the best pass catching tight ends I've seen in the country all year. He's over 500 yards receiving. He was a guy that was actually wide open on that 2-point conversion play, but Brock Purdy's read took him to Petway first, and obviously the brother Motley pass interfered, and that's a whole other story for another day. But Charlie Kolar's, he also caught that touchdown and get them there. So he's a guy. Outside of really Thaddeus Moss, what other fantastic tight end? We didn't see Calcaterra, so that's who matches up with him. How do we deal with him? There's been times where I see they will line him up on the perimeter. So I'm asking you guys from a football perspective, this is a guy that's going to give us a look that we haven't seen before. And the one thing I do like that Brock Purdy does is he will high point that football to him. He will throw it. He does not care. Okay. They will target him. They will try to isolate him on a safety. And they'll throw that seam route and they'll throw it high. They also love pop pass inside the 20s. They actually love pop pass all over the place. They'll do that hard play action fake, and then the tight end will release just over the linebacker, and they will throw that thing. And I love pop pass because that was one of my signature plays when I was a quarterback in high school. We did pop pass all the time. They run pop pass to death. They scored with it with Chase Allen, I believe. So those are some keys and some things that I know that Todd Orlando and their crew are working on. But every defensive corner that's gone up against Iowa State, Alex Grinch included, knew about pop pass, knew about Charlie Kolar, and they've had a lot of trouble defending it. That's where I look at maybe a guy like a BJ Foster or Overshawn, one of your better athletes, to just say, hey, this guy's not as quick or as fast, but I need somebody that's an athlete to be on him. BJ's done a really good job of deflecting. Now, he hasn't been terrific in man coverage, but he's been great in certain zones and somebody that's been really difficult to throw over. If we get in these situations where he's matched up with, say, a Jawan Mitchell or a Deli, we're going to be in trouble. That's no shade to those guys, because those guys, their eyes need to be on Breece Hall and trying to contain that run and working in sync with our defensive line, who those guys are starting to pick it up. They get a game ball from me from last week against Kansas State. But when they start doing that pop pass stuff and they start running those seam routes and those linebackers are trying to carry, they better have help, or else that's going to be 6 for Iowa State. So things we need to be those are all things we need to be aware of. But guys, as I get into my prediction here, I believe Texas can pull this out. I think we're going to be able to exploit Iowa State's tackling, and I think we're going to be able to force just a couple mistakes out of Brock Purdy. I think Sam Ehlinger is going to be game for a matchup with another really good quarterback. He seems to bring it. Now, granted, the offensive line got in his way in his matchup against Jalen Hurts. But the only way I see Iowa State really getting to Sam is if Sam has trouble identifying some of the blitzes, which Jalen Hurts didn't have too much of a problem with. He just made some really boneheaded decisions throwing the football when he shouldn't have. But or if the offensive line can't communicate on some of those blitz pickups. But I have Texas winning 31-27. Like I said, we will continue this discussion on Friday because there's some hot takes that John has that I want to get back and forth, go back and forth with him on, and just continue the discussion and other things that I may not have touched on with this prep. Y'all let me know just some of the things you saw. I know a lot of y'all were with me on Saturday. We were watching that Iowa State Oklahoma game. A lot to look at this week. Now, the other things that we've talked about this week in terms of our program, and this is where I'll finish the video, is recruiting. So I know I don't talk enough about recruiting on the channel, but here's your little recruiting block for all the recruiting nuts. So we had some good news, bad news this week, right? The bad news, obviously, Quay Davis decommitting up from the DFW area. Dynamic wide receiver, a guy who was getting Des Bryant, Michael Crabtree type comps, maybe with even a little bit more speed. And he's a guy that's, quickly growing on the 2021 scene as one of the elite wide receivers in the class. He decommits from Texas. He's completely reopened his commitment. He listed a bunch of schools on Instagram, and only wish the brother the best. It sucks. And even though many of us kind of got wind of this ahead of time and he had tweeted about, big news coming and all those type of things, it still sucks to see it, right? And it leads to what's going on in the Dallas-Fort Worth area recruiting. How come we continue to have some of these issues? We get some momentum with some of the, with Jaquindon Jackson and the Duncanville connections and some of the offensive linemen, and then it's one step forward, two steps back. I feel like with this fan base when it comes to that particular region. And I want to touch on that first before I get to the positive news. Guys, I don't talk about work here too much, but I'm in sales by day, and I've been in sales for a long time. And recently, I would say within the last 6 months, I met with a CFO of a pretty large company that came down to Austin to meet with us. And one of the things he told me, he was very candid and just building that relationship with him and getting to know him better. One of the things he told me, he said, "Hey, Steve, the way we look at the people we do business with, the people we buy from, there's 3 tiers." And this is going to relate to what I'm talking about recruiting. There's 3 tiers of how we evaluate said companies. First, and the tiers are relationship tiers. We either have a transactional relationship with you. Hey, price is good, we'll buy from you. We don't talk. We don't have, we send a PO over, or we send, what's part availability, looks good, okay, we buy from you. That's it. They're not a regular customer. It could be sporadic, but that's our level 3 is the transactional tier. Then we have our second tier, people we regularly do business with. We may have, some repeat stuff going on. These are more of our preferred vendors. These are people where we enjoy their product. We may not seek their advice or counsel on certain things. I'm in tech sales, so in terms of solutioning, the bigger picture, we may not be having those conversations, but we love your product. We love everything that you guys are, and we're always going to be steady purchasers. And then that final tier, and there's maybe 1 or 2 companies that we have this type of relationship with. We view it as a partnership. We collaborate together. We have, business sessions where we go over, we meet, either I come to you or you come to me, and we're collaborating about that bigger picture. We have a real partnership. It's no longer anything where, it's an exchange of goods, and it's an exchange of ideas and how we can help you go to the next level, right? When I look at recruiting right now, I see a lot of transactional relationships in the Dallas-Fort Worth area with our coaching staff, and some of the things I'm hearing about lack of follow-ups, and really just, when I say transactional in terms of relationship aspect, I'm talking about from they have an offer, depth chart looks good, I guess I'll go there. And that relationship goes with a lot of the high school coaches in that area too, because that's Texas high school football coaches. We know how they are, and it's different, right? And it should be different. It's football in this state is different. We talk about this every week, right? So when you only have transactional relationships in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and other schools have preferred vendor status or even that partnership status, you're going to be way behind the 8 ball. And Texas has to figure out how to improve these relationships. That's why losing Rashad Samples to SMU was a big loss, and that factored in the Quay Davis thing here, because their relationship was beyond football. Their relationship was on a trajectory of, hey man, what are we doing for the next 10, 20 years, bro? Like, what type of man do you want to be? Like, those are the type of conversations they're having. It's not just about you come in, we see you looking good in our 3-3-5, and we're going to deploy you here and hopefully get you here, right? It's, hey man, if you make it to the league, great, but we want you to get everybody says the same pitch, right? But beyond that, what type of relationships are you cultivating in this area? And areas are different, regions are different. The people in Dallas are going to be different from the people in Houston. They're going to be different from the people in Central Texas. And you're turning people off when you start to treat everybody or put everybody in a box. They've got to do a better job. They've got to reel this in. And you look at staff and what regions they're responsible for, and where guys have coached. That's why you see people like a Jeff Traylor who are now available, the Chad Morris who was recently let go from Arkansas. There's questions that come up about these guys. Now, some of them don't have great relationships with a Tom Herman. I don't think Chad Morris has a great relationship with Tom Herman. So, but in terms of, and this is a conversation that Tom and Chris Del Conte need. That's at that level that they really need to consider this, because when you start losing out on guys like that, and there's that, it is a talent-rich area, and I know Oklahoma swims there. I know Ohio State swims there. I know schools from all, TCU is up there. SMU is building up their presence. That sounds stupid right now, but look what they're doing, right? So where do we want to be? Transactional versus preferred vendor versus a partnership. What are we building with high school coaches? What are we building? Now, moving on to the positive news. Bijan Robinson recently came out and said, and I forgot, I don't know who to credit for this, but I saw the report that he said he would only decommit if Tom Herman was fired. He is 100% solid to Texas, and he is good to go. He said he knows he's heard a lot of rumors about people saying he's going to decommit, and he's aware of the guys that have left, but he's solid. Xavier Alford's had a lot of the same type of language in what he's talked about, and Bijan Robinson was also open about the schools that he still does remain in communication with and the relationships that he's built with those other coaches. One of the things, and Tran mentioned this in the Saturday video, the live chat, Coach O, after the LSU Auburn game, going up to Derek Brown and hugging him, and he never played a snap for him. But it's that relationship that they built in the recruiting process where he said, whether you come to LSU or not, I love you and I want the best for you. But it's genuine. It's not I'm saying I love you so you can come to my school, or I promise you something so you come to my school, and then the minute you get here, it's not what I said, right? That's why people get frustrated when they get here. So it's very, very important. And Tom Herman has struggled with this from a perception standpoint. How genuine are you? You've got to come off genuine. And I think that's something, it's going to take him time to get over that, but he can get people on this staff. He can get real people. And we have genuine people. I give credit. A lot of people get upset with this particular coach. Stan Drayton is a big reason. And the first name that came out of Bijan Robinson's mouth when he talked about committing to Texas. And I believe Stan Drayton is one of the reasons why Bijan Robinson is so solid in his commitment to Texas. So we have coaches that are at that preferred vendor / partnership status. We do have coaches on our staff that are there. But if you want to get there as a program, that's how you need to be viewed amongst all high school football coaches. That's how you need to be viewed, because those are the people that influence the parents, right? And ultimately the kids as well. But we've got to consider that. And it's just an analogy I wanted to make, because it's something that ever since I was told that by that CFO, it's factored into how I come off as a salesperson. Because when you go out recruiting, you are a salesperson. You are selling the University of Texas football program. You are selling the University of Texas as a school. You are selling the University of Texas as that young man's future for whatever they decide to do for the rest of their life. So we have to do a better job of reeling all of that in. Football matters, absolutely. But a lot of coaches are able to come in and build up these relationships and have that credibility. There's a reason why so many kids put LSU on whether it's in the state of Louisiana or outside of the state of Louisiana, right? And LSU just started cranking like that again this year. You know, they've been not down, but they haven't been where they're number one in the playoff rankings, right? So it doesn't take that. Those kids were already there. It doesn't take that. But it takes being genuine and being real with these coaches and these parents. So just wanted to say that. Last thing, just want to end off. If you like what we're talking about here, and I'm sorry I didn't mention it at the beginning, please subscribe. Trying to grow this channel. At some point, we're going to be shooting for 10,000 subscribers. And I appreciate every single person that continues to listen to what we talk about, that participates in our live chats, that hits us up on all social media accounts. Links to those below. For those of you who always ask, hey, I don't know when a live is coming out, follow, hit the notification button. If you hit that notification button, Every video we make, every live we come out, you're instantly notified. So there is a bell and there's a subscription button. Hit them both if you like us. And if you don't, feel free to DM me with what we can improve on. We are trying our best to grow this channel and produce really good content for you guys. I'm very passionate as a UT fan about what we're doing here. Matthew is as well. That's why I have him here on board to help me curate this product for us. And that's why I'm going to have Tran back here on Friday. So I appreciate every single person here. Guys, horns always up.